are
Oh,
live
yeah,
now.
we sure are.
Live
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. Let me quote this to get some people coming in here. Where is my text expander app? There we go. All right. And let's go on to copy these topics over here this week.
How's everybody doing? Good to see you all.
Thanks.
Well, it's good to
Yes.
see your numbers. It's good to be seen, I suppose is the way to say it, although that sounds super, super vain.
Good to be seen. I think so.
It's good to have sight.
Yes, it's good to feel valued, right?
It is good to feel valued.
Yeah, we all want to add value. I love that, and that's that is a big part of. It's a metric. Maybe it's of course it's a vanity metric, but like.
Well, there's vanity in it, but it's not the only part of it.
No, that's right. So waiting for people to roll in and join the stream this week. Okay. Awesome. All right. I am posting this now.
I'm going to go do it on Facebook too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So folks, if you're joining us right now, we're just kind of posting out on social to drive some people in that want to watch the live stream. We live stream this on Tuesdays, which I never in my life thought I would do years ago, but I never realized anybody who would want to watch us talk, but they do apparently. And so we live stream on Tuesday, and then we publish 2 episodes, one for Wednesday and one for Casual Friday, and those go out on every podcast application and platform you can imagine. So it's cool. It's very cool. All right, that's up on there. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I can quit X now. I can do that. You know what? Why not LinkedIn?
I have to get myself out of where I can see. There we go. Perfect.
Oh, no. I got to find a better way to get here. I mean, I like to promote this everywhere, but...
Yeah. It's kind of... Yeah, I get it. Did you do it on LinkedIn, or are you doing it on LinkedIn?
I am doing it on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's cool. If you do that, I will do it. We should probably... Yeah, we got to find a way to automate that a little bit more.
Yeah, Shannon Jean, that's you.
That's me. That is me. There's 19 on the stream. Oh, I see it. Okay, so repost with your thoughts. Okay, here we go. I could do that right from here. Perfect. So, folks, we're pushing this out on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere we can do it. Okay, I post on LinkedIn as well. Boy,
great.
I got a lot of messages. Most of the messages on LinkedIn are not very... a little spammy. Would you agree?
That's the problem. It's spammy, and so I just ignore everything there.
Yes. You know what?
And I miss the good stuff.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good at certain things. X is good at certain things. What X has some kind of magic that most of my spammy DMs messages go into like a separate section.
The alternate crappy section.
Yes. And I don't know why I would love LinkedIn to have that feature somehow to
I agree. I think they make money by not having that feature. I don't know. Maybe
so?
not. Well,
Yeah, no,
I think some people pay, but
yes.
otherwise so I don't I don't know.
do need, I wonder if you can filter your inbox to I bet you can filter. If you're listening, let us know if you know anything about LinkedIn, because I don't know much.
I would love my LinkedIn to be more valuable.
Yeah, me too. So I bet you can filter, maybe have messages from only people that are connected with you or something. That would probably...
Or even, what would be great is to set a threshold. If they're 2 people away from me, come into this inbox. If they're more than that, go to a different inbox.
Yeah, that would be great.
I don't
send us a message, feedback@businessbrain.show, or hit it in the chat if you're watching the live stream.
Which is the only way you'd be hearing this, because we haven't started recording the show
Oh,
yet.
see? It's a trick. All right.
It is a trick.
I am anytime.
All right, I'm ready to record the show. You ready?
I am.
All right, let's do this. Here goes nothing. Business Brain, episode 577 for Wednesday, August 28th. Crackers Over the Keyboard Day 2024. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Business Brain, the show where we take a couple of ideas, maybe even a few ideas, sometimes just one idea. We crunch it, we dissect it, we analyze it, we use it to tune our business brains each and every time we get together so that we can beat the system and keep on living those charmed lives. Here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Northern California, I'm Shannon G, and I've kind of got the floating head thing going today. My shirt almost matches my background. So if you're watching the live stream.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Most people aren't.
Yes, that's true. So it's okay. Yeah.
It is. It's okay.
We'll get that out in editing, I guess, right? So
and I wanted to say, you know, as I was introducing the show and I mentioned Crackers Over the Keyboard Day, I saw a question mark on your face, and I'm sure there are other people with question marks.
Know.
I do this every episode, as you've probably noticed, unless this is your first episode, in which case, welcome. Also, I do this in the intro of every episode, and I link to the explanation or history of that day in the show notes at businessbrain.show. So if you want to learn more, you can. Crackers Over the Keyboard Day is really just a day to embrace doing something that is generally seen as like dangerous or whatever. Today you can do it. You don't have to worry. Just do your thing. And you know what? You can shake your keyboard out afterwards and everything's going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. Yep.
I like it. I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
hey, you're just getting back. Yeah, we recorded last week's shows early because you were out of town at Podcast Movement. And
that's right.
I'd love to learn more and tell us what that show's about. And I think you also have some other stuff to share.
I have some news, potentially. So definitely, I'm going to, if we do talk about the news, it's going to be the earliest I've ever talked about something that we've done internally in public. But I'm probably going to talk about it because I'm super excited. So Podcast Movement happens twice a year. The summer show is ostensibly more for podcast creators than there's sort of a spring or winter show that's ostensibly more for the industry. Right now, people are kind of in there's some confusion over all of that. So a lot of people that are just industry folks go to both shows anyway.
Okay.
Just
when you say industry folks, like the advertising side of it, is that what you're talking about?
Advertising side, the ad agency,
I see. Promotion and stuff.
Yeah, the sort of people in the picks and shovels business that cater to the advertising side, like the ad tech folks. Those people are there, but also the creators are there. The people who are podcasting, the people who are building like the picks and shovel business for podcasters, like hosting and you know tools and that sort of thing. So,
that's cool.
And I actually spoke at this one. I gave a session teaching my workflow, how I created this workflow and really honed it over the last 20 years to where we're able to publish the show very quickly after we finish recording, with the goal of being able to release consistently because we know how valuable that is.
It's because it that bias to action and get things done. There's no steps. You don't have to send it out to someone to edit it. You don't have to spend extra money to have it done. Creating this easy workflow, there are definitely multiple steps to it, and Dave does some and I do some, but truly within a half hour after we create this content, it's in the pipe and ready to publish.
It could be released immediately or effectively immediately. We choose to batch it just because of the way our mutual schedules work and the way we found the show works best. But we certainly could just release right away. And that was the goal because I knew I knew when I came up with this, when I started podcasting, I knew that release consistency was important, probably from our publishing of articles on the web. With
I remember you telling me that 10 years ago. Like, we have to do it. You have to pick a day, and we have to do it every single week, like you said, religiously. And you hold each other accountable. That's why I love having a co-host because there's no chance you're not going to do it. It's like, oh, I have to record early, or we have to shift things around.
That's fine.
but we are publishing episodes this week and every week, right?
And that's the expectation, and it's the expectation on ourselves because we know it's the expectation on you. The hardest thing to do is to attract one of you listeners. And the easiest thing for us to do is to lose one of you. So we want to make sure that we do our best to not lose you as a listener. We understand that we're going to lose some of you. Like it's how it goes. But we don't want it to be our fault.
Yes.
Something easily solved. So anyway, I gave that presentation there. I also met with a bunch of podcasters, some of whom we might bring into the Backbeat Media family because we represent podcasts. And then, of course, I also met with sponsors and advertising agencies who represent sponsors, some of whom were new. And that's great to develop a new relationship there because that could be another avenue for sponsorship, which means another revenue source. But also just what I call relationship maintenance, where there's people in the industry that it's good to see and make sure we're doing what they're, there's a lot of people that I met with last week that I've worked with for years. I would have, if you asked me before I went, do you need to meet specifically with this person or this person or this person? You could have picked like 10 of them. And I would have said, no, I don't need to meet with any of them, but it's just good to just, we've done episodes, in person.
We've done whole episodes on trade shows and the power of them.
Well, I would say 8 of those 10, the conversation opened a door that would not have otherwise been opened. Either, hey, we need something different from you, or, hey, we have an opportunity that we haven't talked about, don't know why. Here, let's talk about it. Like those kinds of, so yeah. Yeah, the trip paid for itself.
Yeah, that's huge. I think especially with this kind of work, so many people that work from home, these shows may have a renaissance of becoming hubs, if you will, of people being able to get together and let those ideas and opportunities percolate. Be interesting.
Well, and that was interesting. The sort of the second topic that I alluded to at the beginning, something new that we're doing. I've been thinking about for a long time. The podcast industry has a privacy problem, specifically when it comes to ads.
Okay.
Just like on the web. In fact, it's exactly like what happened on the web, and I'm shocked that we're repeating this bit of history so soon, but we are. What the podcast industry wants to do and is doing at some level is they want to be able to track the people who listen to the podcast.
Sure. Yeah.
When there's an advertiser in that show. And then they also track the people that visit the advertiser's site or app or whatever it is that's being promoted. And then they want to relate those two together so that they know if the ad was successful at driving traffic without having to rely on a coupon code or a businessbrain.show URL, whatever URL. Yep, exactly. And we had this conversation on the web 20 plus years ago where we had the same problem with banner ads. People were obsessed with clicks. And it's like, yeah, but if somebody sees your ad, they might still buy your product.
Right.
And Ziff Davis came to me one day, 22 years ago on the web.
Are they still around?
I don't
Davis?
Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. But I know what the most valuable asset on their balance sheet was the day that they sold off their assets if they're not still around. And it was the data they collected.
Yeah.
Because they came to me and they said, hey, we know you have this problem. People are obsessed with clicks. You know that not everybody that buys click through from your website. You want credit for that. We have a solution. They explain the same thing. We're going to put a pixel on the sponsor's website that captures user agent, the type, browser type and version, essentially.
Yeah.
And IP address. And we want to put the same thing on your website. This, again, pre-podcasting 20 years ago. Want to put the same thing on your website, captures user agent and IP address. And then we'll put those in a database and we'll relate them to each other. And when we see that user A wound up, visiting your website and maybe 4 others, and then bought from this sponsor, we know to give all 5 of you credit for that, partial credit anyway, for that purchase.
Yeah, sure.
And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Where I should have asked questions, Shannon, was when they followed that up and said, we want you to put this pixel on your website for all of your users, and for every 1,000 users that visit, so cost per 1,000, CPM, M being meal, the French word for 1,000, cost per 1,000, CPM, we're going to pay you $1. And it was like, whoa, like we were selling ads for $14. So it was like, well, that now like $1, that makes a big difference. And we get to do it for the whole website. That's amazing. I don't know why I didn't ask why. Because if I had, I would have known exactly why. Because they were data farming is what they were doing. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
And then we wound up 15 years later with GDPR and CCPA and all of the privacy things because
where you have to, don't sell my data, don't tell
it
that
turns
kind of stuff.
out that we humans, not you and me and certainly not our listeners, but humanity in general becomes irresponsible when we have access to this kind of data.
Yes,
it's just how it be. Right. Yep. If not the person collecting it, certainly the person to whom they eventually wind up selling it.
Yep.
And literally the same quarter that GDPR and CCPA were coming into like their own on the web was when the podcast industry, people, startups in the podcast industry said, hey, we have an idea. And they called me and it was the same conversation, except this time I'd had 2 decades of history. And I was like, you know that this is a bad idea, right? Like
right.
bad.
You see where this leads to, right? Yeah.
We've already seen it. Like it's right here. And so we've said no on this show, on the other 2 shows that I do. And we're not alone. Lots of podcasters have said no because at Mac Observer, I calculated it. I sold the data of over 4 million people.
Yeah. And they sell. Yeah. And they sell it, even though it's a kind of anonymized at some point, they triangulate it. Yeah, ish.
That's the problem is they can triangulate.
They sell it somewhere else and they go, oh, we can take that data, match it with this data. And they get a lot of private, they find out
suddenly
stuff that
they
we're
know.
not happy
Like if you go to a sponsor's website and buy a product, they have your name, your email address, your address, maybe your birth date, and they tie that to your IP. And now it's like, oh, that person listens to Business Brain, or that person listens to, I don't know if there's a podcast called Bipolar Daily or whatever, but let's say there is. I don't want to be the one that like outs your health issues. That's
absolutely.
Not yet I got 4 million people on the planet to whom I've already done that. I'm going to go ahead and cap it there. So we haven't done this. However, the temptation grows because more and more sponsors are pushing to use these pixels because it's like, wow, I can. And there's a couple of reasons sponsors might want to use the pixel. The one, and certainly let's just jump to the extreme. One is that they actually want all the creepy data. Yep. Okay, well, I'm not going to help you. Because I don't agree with you getting all the creepy data. However, other sponsors are just like, hey, we just want to use it to confirm delivery.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's
you
totally
talked about
fine.
the ad and the conversion, right? To see if the ad is any valuable or is that too much?
Yeah, it's hard to do conversions and track it directly to the ad without putting the person in the middle.
Okay,
right?
I see.
But you can still track like the total number of conversions, and you can interpolate and that sort of thing. And so I started thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this for a while. And I talked to people at Podcast Movement this week because, of course, it comes up, and they're like, "Do you think you'll ever accept pixels?" And I'm like, "Not until they're private pixels." And as soon as I said those words, "private pixel," to someone, I was like, "That's a nice term. I like that term." Could we create such a thing? Is there such a thing? And Shannon, on Wednesday night,
now there is
in my hotel room at Podcast Movement, I sat down with a blank piece of screen and I coded up the Backbeat Media private pixel, and it works.
How does it work? Tell us.
So, well, I want to explain how it's implemented first because I think this is the most important part. I wanted to create this in a way that I could give it to podcasters to use for free. I don't want to make money from this.
Okay.
I certainly don't want to collect people's data from this. Right. But I want people to be able to use it with as little friction as possible. And I want it to be implementable by the podcaster. I don't want
non-technical type of.
Well, it might be a little technical-ish, but I don't want them to have to rely on the sponsor to say, hey, we support the Backbeat Media Private Pixel. I want to put the power in the hands of the podcaster, where the podcaster says to the sponsor, we use the Backbeat Media Private Pixel. So if you're okay with that and what that means and what it doesn't mean, then great, I can put your pixel in as well. And really, there's no pixels in podcasting because it's not on the web, but it's redirects on your feed. So what happens now if an advertiser wants to track your listeners is they give you a part of a URL that goes at the beginning of your downloadable file. So in our feed, we put the link to the audio file that you're hearing right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. They tell you, put a little redirect at the front of that so that it goes through the sponsor's server or some data collector's server first. Yes. And then it immediately redirects to whatever your download link is, right?
Got it.
That redirect allows them to capture that data.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started thinking, well, what if I jump in front of that and instead of redirecting, because as soon as I redirect, like if, let's say, and you could put multiple redirects on a show, like if you have a tracker and I have a tracker and, then there's the data file, I could have it go to your tracker and have your tracker redirect to my tracker and then my tracker redirect to the data file. And we both get the data in theory. And so I was like, well, I can't put a redirect in front because if I put a redirect in front, I'm still passing the person along to you. I need to be the proxy, and I've built it, and it works. But I know people are going to say, well, we want IP address so that we know it's unique because otherwise, if all we see is the IP address of Dave's proxy server,
you don't know.
We don't know. And I was like, okay, let me solve that problem. So what I do in our little engine is I see the IP address. We don't log it anywhere, but I see it in the session, right?
Sure.
And so I take the IP address and I do a hash on it, which is essentially a one-way encryption on this. So it creates a unique ID and it can't be reverse engineered. I know some hashes can be reverse engineered, folks. This one can't because it uses a salt. And if you know the nerd stuff, then that makes sense to you. Right. So it's a one-way thing. And I pass that along. I also pass the user agent along. So if you're using Apple Podcasts, they know you're using Apple Podcasts.
That's cool.
If you're using YouTube Podcasts, they know you're using YouTube or Android or whatever. That gets passed along. And then what I also get is I know because I can see the script can see your IP address that's running. And so the script can go and grab geo data like
got it.
Country and in the US, state, city, but regional data so that people can say, all right, well, I'm targeting someone in the Boston metro area or the San Francisco metro area. Yeah. And I pass all of that along in headers to them. So they get all the things that they say they would need from the IP address, a unique ID,
but they don't
location
get the
data,
IP.
But they don't get the IP.
Yeah.
And they get the user agent, so they're able to see, okay, this is an Apple user, this is an Overcast user, this is Downcast, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
I have it working. I'm telling you folks this because A, I'm super excited and proud of what I built, and B, we're using it for this show to test. So I guess if you don't hear this, it means my engine broke and kept you from downloading it. But I don't think my engine's going to break. Yep, I've been testing it on other things for about a week here. Well, almost a week. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love it. So hopefully, it would become a standard that the podcasters could use and to protect the privacy of the listeners and allow the advertiser to have enough information to where they could confirm the ads are being shown or talked about, that we are, this much traffic is coming in from these sources and target.
And here's
something.
who it is.
Yeah,
in an anonymized way.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool.
Here's where these people are from, which is really all you're going to get from IP address anyway.
Yeah.
And now, and what I love is we'll set this up. We already have it set up, as you can see. You can look at our feed and see that I have like pp-cf.bbm.fm at the beginning because that's the URL I'm using for the engine. Don't use that for your own engine yet because you'll see it'll fail. I've whitelisted certain podcasts from being allowed, because I need to make sure the whole industry
Yeah.
doesn't just like grab my engine and crater
Yes.
it. Yeah. So,
That's cool. That's awesome.
But there is a way, and we'll put up once we like. There's a couple of steps here, and we're definitely cart before the horse. One step is showing this to some of the powers that be in the podcast industry, and hopefully, and I am not good at this, Shannon, but I have some people helping me with this, hopefully getting buy-in from the folks that might not otherwise like something like this. If I can get buy-in from a couple of the tracking agencies, like, yes, here's what this does, here's what it doesn't do.
Yeah.
You know, eyes wide open. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking I don't want to mislead anyone. I want people to understand.
Yeah. And what I like about it is this, we talk about it all the time. It's just the bias to action, just to get it done, just to get it out there, start testing it. You're not talking about it for 6 months in theory and this and that and the other. It's like,
exists.
hey, and I've got a podcast, so let's use it here and let's see if we can break anything. And then
that's it.
Mess around. So that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And then I will put out instructions, and we will open source the code that I've written to so that podcasters could use and spin up for free their own server where they could do this. And I'm intentionally being vague about where and how you would do that, because I know how you would do it right now. The one I'm running, I am running for free. So assuming this works, a podcast of a modest or even a fairly large, medium to large size could get away with doing it for free. If you got to pay, it's going to be $5 a month, and then it's yours. It's all your thing. Yep. But I'm intentionally being vague about some of the specifics because I need to polish it up a little bit.
Sure.
All that. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yep.
Do we have time to talk about another topic, or you think
we
should?
But good news. That means we have to come back on Friday, Shannon, and do another episode. So
that's awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out. This was an interesting show in the sense, the technical part of it. And again, I love the just jumping in. I'm going to write it. I'm going to create the code. I'm just going to put it in place, and we're going to be using it within a week. That's the way to go. Yeah.
We're using it right away. Now, I didn't get much sleep on Wednesday night, but whatever. It's fine.
Small
price
to pay. Small price to pay.
I was excited to pay that price.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Feedback at businessbrain.show if you have any questions, problems to report. Otherwise, keep living that charmed life, and we'll see you.
See you Friday.
On Friday. And we're out. Sweet.
Awesome. Cool. So if you're listening to the live stream, this is in between the shows. I want to talk about topics too.
We can rejigger.
Yeah. Do you want to do this embrace foot and mouth disease, or do you want to do my borrowed credibility? Maybe if I dump my intro topic, we might be able to do both.
We can do both.
Yeah. Let's
foot
do
and mouth
both.
can be quick. Yeah.
Okay. So let's do, foot and mouth as the intro. And then we'll do borrowed credibility as the topic, okay?
Okay.
That sounds great. And then while Dave is spinning knobs and pushing buttons to get the first episode ready for me to finish up, we are in between. And one of the reasons why this stuff gets published so quick is because Dave's system, and we just kind of divide and conquer. And it's like, okay, you do this, you do that. And fortunately, our partnership has worked out terrific over the years, where I think both of us are, we're just the type of personality where each of us wants to do more. And so it's often like, I'll do that. Hey, I can take that.
I'll do it.
Or I'll do it. So it's kind of like fighting for the check when you go out to dinner.
It's kind of that,
there's certain people that you go out to that kind of lean back when the check comes, and waiting, and other people that you're fighting to pay. Like, no, I got this, I got that. And so that is a great sign, I think, in a partnership. And it definitely has worked for us as we roll up on our 10-year anniversary, which is coming up.
It's coming up, yeah.
Coming up on the 15th of something or other. I don't know when it is.
February 19th.
February 19th.
If the math is, if I am correct about the math.
That's cool. That's awesome.
I believe I am.
That's great. So Dave's finishing up
almost
with that.
There.
And no worries. We got about 100 people rolling in from X.
Nice.
And Facebook doesn't let us count how many people, right? It's some weird thing.
I don't know why we get some of them with when I do it with Matt Geek Gab, but I know objectively that we have had people watching on Facebook because we've seen comments coming in from you.
Yeah.
And yet it shows 0. So it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you about this.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But I had an interesting weekend. I had to go up Tahoe and do repairs because a bear got in our house up in Tahoe. And, yeah, ripped the toilet off the wall, and I think he was thirsty. And then went upstairs. We had guests there this weekend, and they left the sliding glass door open, so it rolled in, smashed right through the screen door, of course. Hit the bathroom on the way upstairs, ripped the toilet off the wall, rolled upstairs, tried to get the fridge open, couldn't get it because the double, I guess, was a little more difficult. Tore into the food cabinet where they had all their food, destroyed that. Carried a bottle of syrup back downstairs in the game room and proceeded to, I imagine, lay on his back and squirt syrup all down and then roll over all over the place. And so the carpet was just caked with syrup. And so, yeah, my wife and I went up early. We had a trip planned with her side of the family. So we went up early, put a new toilet in, fixed the screen door, got the carpet, cleaned the carpets, fixed the cabinets. So, man, yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. And the guest has to pay the bills, so you got to manage that part of the business. And it was interesting, but it all worked out in the end. So
all right, cool. That's crazy. Wow,
it was pretty wild. First time in
it happens.
Yeah,
We've had and now you will be more diligent, but we live in an area where bears live, as many of us in the U.S. do. And when we moved here almost 20 years ago, there was a bear that routinely visited our neighborhood.
Sure.
And, this was before Facebook or anything. So there would be the phone tree that would happen amongst the sort of caregivers of small children, like, hey, saw the bear, might want to wrangle your kids, bring them inside or whatever. And then that existed for maybe the first couple of years, and then no sightings, nothing until maybe 3 years ago. And now there's actually a pack of bears that's somewhat
roll around. Yeah.
I've heard they roam up to 30 miles per day.
Wow.
So but they obviously, like all of us, they're creatures of habit, and so they go places. But
that's
all right. I'm ready to rock here.
Let's do it, man.
Here we go. Business Brain, episode 578 for Casual Friday, August 30th, National Toasted Marshmallow Day 2024. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Business Brain, the show where we take a couple of ideas, we crunch them, we dissect them, we use them to analyze so that we can tune our business brains and keep on living that charmed life by beating the system. Here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And out here in Northern California, I'm Shannon Jean. Hey, you made a comment, a term that I don't know what it means, but I want to learn. It's what is foot-in-mouth disease, Dave?
Right. Well, it might be my own term, but I don't think it is. I think I've heard it somewhere.
I'm definitely stealing it.
Foot and mouth disease is when you open your big mouth and say something that embarrasses you.
Got it.
And I think it's good for all of us to embrace foot in mouth disease, because when we're in a new situation, I just came back from that trade show. I also was I was actually backstage at Gillette Stadium this weekend for Kenny Chesney and things like that. And it was awesome. It was pretty good. But you find yourself in new opportunities, new scenarios, foreign scenarios, perhaps all the time around people that you haven't met. And you have two choices. And really you think you have three, but what you have is two. You can either keep your mouth shut and be a wallflower that no one even remembers.
Yep.
Or you can do the choice that is a fallacy that doesn't exist. You can only say things that are going to be super smart and impressive to all the people there. But you don't know what those things are going to be, so you don't get to do that. But if you can convince yourself of that, then that's great, because then you don't have to worry about simply embracing foot-in-mouth disease. And that is saying things and maybe you're going to embarrass yourself. Maybe people are going to look at you like, what's the matter with this person?
What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him? He doesn't belong here.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's kind of the worst part of those sorts of things, is when someone there is like, I don't think this guy should be here.
Yeah,
that's bad. And it usually is from something I said. You know, but then you just keep going with it. Embrace foot and mouth disease. Keep engaging with the people. Listen more than you talk, but do talk, respond, join the conversation.
Yeah.
If you think you have something to add it. But watch the reactions. Like this isn't put on blinders and embrace foot and mouth disease.
Yeah, read the room, right?
Read the room, but don't just remain quiet.
Well, I think a way to kind of sneak into that conversation, maybe in between option 2 and 3, is just ask questions. It go like, wow, I didn't know that. Like, you went backstage this weekend to Kenny Chestnut. I would have all kinds of questions like, hey, that's totally cool. How does that work? How do you get this stuff out? I mean, you don't want to be a pest about it, but if you if you don't have anything else to say to add to the conversation, asking that question can help you engage on another level where that you get remembered or whatever you're trying to achieve.
Great idea. Yeah, people love to talk about themselves.
Yes, they do.
In general, like you said, if you're too much of a pest, while somebody's trying to do their job, well, that's different.
That's right.
Otherwise,
but the questions is, we always gauge. You meet new people or you go out, this kind of thing, and I often gauge whether we would see that person or hang out with that couple again with like, how was the questions back and forth? Because it's often, I'm a question guy. I always say, I am truly interested in your life. What do you do? And how did you get here? And what do you, that's just me. I like to have those conversations, but often you don't get those questions back. Right. So you don't get that two ways. So I love that idea. I think the foot in mouth, I don't know that it's a disease. It's more like an opportunity.
I know, but there's like the hand, foot, mouth disease or whatever. So I figured I just kind of embrace this.
I see where you were playing on that. That's cool.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it. Another topic I wanted to discuss was this concept of what I call borrowed credibility. And I've recently had this because building a new business, and I really I had no credibility, trying to figure things out. And so one of the first things I wanted to do was get some testimonials, right? Like, hey, this guy's valuable. He has valuable information. But I really didn't even know how to I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't doing anything about it. So I just started in this part where I'm thinking of, okay, I'm going to become a business coach, right? In the beginning, I need testimonials, but I have no experience. So I started booking just free calls. Like, hey, do you want to jump on a call and talk about your business or what you're going through? Let's, even, it doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And this was the very uncomfortable part, was that if I felt the call went well, like there was some laughter, maybe some aha moments, somebody was taking notes. That's a big part. Writing things down.
Yes.
I would, as we ended the call, I would say, hey, would you mind leaving me a testimonial if you felt I added value on this call? And of course, most of them said, absolutely, sure. So I use a service that collects testimonials, and I would just fire it off to them. And it was really uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't know who this person is. I've only talked to them for a half hour, but I was able to start getting testimonials for a business that did not exist, right? And all I wanted them to say is whether I had added value, and they went well beyond that in most cases. Sometimes I did not ask them because I was like, this one's kind of not very good, right? Or I didn't maybe have the skill set that they wanted or needed. So I was just like, okay, cool. Great to meet you. Yeah, anything I can help you with, let me know. That has helped me a lot. And I've got a ton of testimonials now that I can use, that I am using to build out my coaching website and the service. And it's you also want to target people that have credibility to lead if you can.
If you can, sure.
If you can,
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so another example, like I have a client that is just getting started, and he's like, man, I don't know anything about these businesses. And this guy's very smart, but he's been in a corporate world. But he goes, I don't know about these people that are trying to acquire businesses. He wanted to learn about that stuff. And so I suggested,
Fair.
I said, hey, why don't you start a podcast? 10 minutes, 10 questions, 10 minutes. And go target people that have acquired businesses, have them on this show, ask them, tell them, look, I'd love to have 10 minutes of your time. And I have, maybe it's 5 questions for you.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Keep it short. You could send them the questions beforehand if you want. Get them on, we're in StreamYard, Zoom, wherever you can record. Yeah,
the point isn't publishing your podcast.
The point
although that
is
would be a
not
really interesting podcast.
Correct. The point is, the exercise is not the podcast. The point is, you're connecting with these people that probably wouldn't otherwise, maybe they wouldn't talk to you. They won't have time or something. Hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. I'm developing da-da-da-da-da. They come on. They answer your questions. They're educating you, and you're borrowing their credibility when you start publishing those podcast episodes. Oh, yes. I talked with this guy that owns or that bought 5 businesses or started this and knows all these things that you don't know. And especially if you're just starting out, I just would encourage you to come up with, we talk about beating the system here. This is another hack to beat the system. You don't have to have all that experience to start, but you can borrow it from other people.
And I think if you are a podcaster, or if your goal is to actually, make that podcast part of your brand, perhaps part of your revenue stack, there's a lot of people out there that are under the false assumption of, if I have great guests on my show, all of their fans will then just become my fans.
No.
And that's not the case. They might not even listen to one episode, but at best they would listen to one with their, but even that doesn't often happen. What happens is you build up an audience of people that like what you do. Even if you have guests on it that are way more famous,
but
than
it's the way you interact. Right.
It's you are the people, and you need to remember that, because, and I've learned that this year with Gig Gab, because that show has become just me, and I bring in guests, and I've had some guests that are, objectively much more famous than me, way more. I just had Paul McCartney's guitar player on.
That's
awesome. There's zero question of which one of us has a bigger name, right?
Yeah.
But the people that listen. Certainly, I have some people that are interested in him that sort of drive by. But the people that stick around not because he was on one time. They stick around because they like the interaction that I cause. So I always make sure to stick with what interests me. And your idea of this show for this other person, even though it's not really an idea for a show, it actually is a decent idea for a show, right? It interests that person, which means they're going to attract other people who are interested in the same thing.
Topic,
in the topic,
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you 2 more quick examples because they both involve Dave. So when I wanted to, I needed to start a company to pay for my kids' private school, and I knew about. I'm a deal guy. I knew all about deals and everything else, but I had no credibility starting a website. I had no understanding of how it worked. So I had to borrow someone's credibility. And I reached out to Dave. At first, didn't even reach out to Dave because I didn't know him. I reached out to Brian. I think
you reached out to Greg Snyder.
Yeah, maybe it was Greg.
It was Greg.
It was an ad rep that was selling ads for my company, Mac Rescue, at the time. And I said,
selling ads to you from my website.
Yes, correct. And I said, hey, would you guys be interested in I had this idea, and Greg thankfully didn't just shut me down. He said, hey, let me pass this on to Dave, and he's the guy who would handle that. Dave and I started Deals on the Web. That ran for about 10 years, made a ton of money, helped put my kids through school. Fast forward to 10 years after that, when I thought about starting a podcast for a small business, I just wanted to talk to small business owners. I felt that they were not being addressed. I felt that everybody was super crazy VC funding, and you have to have $1 million and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, no, man, I built this great life just with these small companies. I've stacked up lifestyle businesses and to build wealth. I want to talk about that. And who do I know to talk about that? Whose credibility can I borrow? Dave, because Dave was in the podcast industry.
Right.
And Dave already had a podcast with 50 gazillion, listeners for the Mac Geek Gab. I borrowed his credibility. He taught me how to be a podcaster. I'm just finally getting it after 578 episodes. But he taught me about consistency and about, you got to sound good. This is the equipment you got to get. And I'm still recording this on a $50 microphone, I want you to know. But I take pride in that. So there's nothing wrong with
$50 microphones.
No,
exactly. As long as you're using the right one for you.
Yes, exactly.
And your room and your environment, like all those things. Yep.
All that stuff. So if you're on the fence, how do I start? I don't know what to do. I don't have this knowledge. I guarantee you there's someone's credibility that you can borrow to help escalate you to that next level. So look around. And if you don't know, who you can contact, reach out to us, feedback@businessbrain.show. Share your network, or come find us on X @Dave Hamilton or @Shannon Jean. Send us a DM. Tell us your situation. I'd be glad to give you some feedback on who you can go, whose credibility that you can borrow to get yourself moving, because action is the answer, man. Always.
Action's always the answer. Yep. And that's where the foot and mouth disease comes from. It's take action.
Yeah.
Don't just sit there. Do something.
Change your life.
Bias towards action. It'll change your life. It will. Have a great weekend, folks. Feedback@businessbrain.show. We'll see you next week. And we're out.
That was good. That was short and sweet.
That was great. Yep.
But that's great. I like that.
Yep.
I used to be so worried about these shows being too short, but now I've come full circle about how short, sweet, to the point. We don't need to talk more.
The 20-minute episodes are the over 20-minute episodes, I should say.
Yeah.
Those are the ones for this show that worry me. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great. Well, folks, thank you for hanging out with us for an hour or so as we put all this together, or 45 minutes. And we'll have 2 episodes out, one tomorrow on August 28th, and then one on Friday, August 30th. You can find them on any of the podcast platforms that you listen to. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out, folks. See ya.